So this one will be the one that you go close.
I have 9:59 on
But looking for a parking spot.
Actually, we were doing budgets today. That usually clears out the whole room. We'll do that.
Ooh, spreadsheets.
Okay. Remove the suspense. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our October 20th meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
McIntyre?
Here.
Mr. Chapman? Here. Mr. Dees?
Here.
Acting Administrator Whitmore?
Here. All right. Request for modifications and deal with the agenda.
We do have some modifications. There are 4. Would you like to take those one at a time, or you can go down the list?
Just run down the list and see what we want to do.
Okay. First item is the removal of item 1B from the consent agenda for consideration as 4B under administration. The second is to add letter of support for the Coast Guard community designation as 1E. Third is to postpone item 4A indefinitely. And the fourth is to add a request for legal opinion regarding taxes for different classes of property. That's item 4C.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve. One agenda.
Moved and seconded. Or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment for agenda items. Seeing no one, consent agenda.
Thank you. Item 1A is approval of vouchers for the week of October 12th.
You just go ahead and read them down.
Oh,
take them as block.
Item 1B has been relocated down to item 4B. Item 1C is approval of minutes for the week of October 12th. Item 1D is approval of budget modifications for the week of October 5th. And item 1E is a letter of support for the Coast Guard community designation.
Okay.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Excuse my voice. If I lose my place, I've just got a new pair of glasses, not more than about 15 minutes ago, so I'm having a little trouble figuring out how to hold my head so I can see properly here. So bear with me. Reports and presentations, Commissioner Chapman. Okay. Commissioner Peach.
I had the opportunity to attend the Board of Natural Resources meeting last week. I did a member of the board, but as a member of the audience, I wanted to share something that came out as discussion of the management of the Marlette. It was the second half of the day's presentation by Zach Perry, Department of Forestry and Wildlife Ecology from the University of Wisconsin. First half of the day was to review 5 alternatives for management of the Marlette. He did an analysis of those, which were the current situation is 621,000 out of 1.3 million acres the DNR manages are in a long-term forest cover reserve. So we looked at that alternative, decreasing it to 594,000, increasing it to 734,000. So that spread, 594, 734. The conclusion that he came to was that the difference among the alternatives was very small. And so the debate that's ongoing now with regard to the research and people, the wildlife biologists, is kind of summarized in the expression, is it in the seas or the trees? And then the other thing I picked up on was that if the Marlette Washington State, DNR only manages 10% of that population. But I just ask you to think about the difference between 734,000 and 594,000 acres. Take that and multiply it by $5,000 an acre, and then have an analyst tell you that there's no difference in the results.
Of course, I was there as a member of the board, and it was a long, interesting day to try to figure out what is known and what is not yet known about marble murrelets, their what's going on with their food source at sea, and where these little creatures are, because they're pretty elusive. It's very difficult to get a good handle on these things because they spend most of their life at sea. Actually, they fly better underwater than they do fly in the air, as it turns out. And they come ashore, obviously, to hatch their fledglings and that kind of thing, which is very hard to pin down exactly where they are, where they're going to be. Some other interesting statistics. This was not discussed at the meeting, but it was provided separately by DNR staff. 91% of the bird population lives in Alaska, 7% in Canada, British Columbia, of course, and the remaining 2% is distributed between Washington, Oregon, and California. So there's not a whole lot of these birds down in the lower 48. So we, the board, will have some interesting discussions in the weeks ahead to figure out exactly what is and is not the obligation of the department under the ESA, Endangered Species Act. Some interesting times, I'm sure. Joel, and I put the meeting agenda, the Board of Natural Resources meeting agenda, and all the presentations on the table there for your reading pleasure. Contracts and agreements.
Item 2A is an agreement with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services for outpatient chemical dependency and treatment services as discussed at work session yesterday.
Move to approve the agreement.
Okay.
Moved and seconded, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 2B is an agreement with the Sequim School District for transition program training, also as discussed yesterday at work session.
Move to approve the agreement.
Moved or second. Moved and seconded, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 2C, memorandum of understanding between North Olympic Salmon Coalition, North Olympic Land Trust, Dungeness Farms Incorporated, and Dungeness Habitat LLC for habitat restoration project, excuse me, on Dungeness Bay. Pardon me, as discussed at work session.
Move to approve the MOU.
I'll second. Discussion.
Yes, please. Had an opportunity to look at the document with a member of the public, and if I can, Christina, had an opportunity to share the individual's concerns with you. Most of the concerns dealt with the reference in the document that dealt with either receiving fee, title, or easement. And if you can kind enough, if you would explain why in one part of the document it refers to fee or easement, and there's a couple of other places where it only refers to easement.
Sure, I'm happy to do so. Part of the issue with this is this has been a very long time in developing this MOU. I want to say it's probably 6 months at least. Is that a year? Okay. So this document has been in the works for a long time, and what has happened is that some of these steps identified in the MOU have already been done. The key one that the citizen mentioned to you yesterday is an analysis of our ownership interest, whether it be fee interest or easement interest in the roads bed. Sometime early this year or late last year, Joe Swordmaker and I reviewed those deeds and those documents, and we determined that we have in fact an easement interest, which is consistent with how we hold title in most of our roads in the county anymore. So that's why when we were writing the document, it switched from fee to easement. And to be frank, because there were some other sticking points in this agreement, I don't think anybody thought to go back and change that and take the word fee out of there and to make clear that we've already made that assessment. But that assessment has been done. We are taking ownership in these new roads, assuming the board accepts that, in the same level and the same identification of ownership that we had in the previous road beds.
So we're not giving anything up?
Correct. We are not giving anything up. We are not taking anything extra.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
That's it for me. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Bids and awards.
Thank you. Item 3A is a request for proposals to be received no later than noon Wednesday, November 25th, for mental health, substance abuse, intervention services in public schools. Proposals will be opened publicly during the board meeting on December 1st at 10 a.m.
Move to approve the request for proposals.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3B is a request for proposals to be received no later than noon Friday, November 20th, for housing and homelessness services. Proposals will be opened publicly during the board meeting on November 24th at 10 a.m.
Move to approve the request for proposals.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Administration.
Item number 4A has been postponed to a later date. Item 4B is approval of minutes for the week of September 7th.
Move to approve.
And I will second. Discussion. These are kind of a bifurcated set of minutes here. If I can get my eyeballs to focus here. These were the main body of the minutes has to do with the business of the day. There's an addendum to the minutes that deals with one of the agenda items for which one of the regular members of the Board of Commission was recused. And so this was the proper legal way to make sure that the minutes were prepared and approved by the commissioners that were associated with each one of the items on the agenda. Trish, I think I'm stating that correctly. If I misstate, or Mark, correct me, but I believe this is the appropriate legal form of this kind of interesting and unusual meeting.
Say that.
This, there were two segments of this week's September 8th, I think it was. Yes, September the 8th. One of the members of this board was recused from one of the business items. So in order to prepare the minutes and have them approved by the commissioners that were associated with each of the items, it seemed best to split the minutes into a regular body of minutes and then have an addendum that was signed by the two commissioners that were associated with that business item. So this is the way that it worked out, how to address the appropriate signatures for each segment of that occasion. It's an unusual meeting, but
It was, and I did discuss and involved the first mention of this a few weeks back, this item with the clerk of the board, that thanks to her for shepherding the process. But I think that's an appropriate resolution for the receipt to maintain that firewall.
thanks to all for figuring that out, because, and I will try not to throw too many curveballs in the future, but I will not make that promise. Further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
And I will abstain.
Okay. Motion carries.
Item 4C is a request for legal opinion regarding taxes for different classes of property.
Move to approve.
And I will second, this was discussed a week ago yesterday, a work session, but Mike, you weren't able to be there, so I wanted to make sure that we had all three members of the board here to actually approve or not this particular question or a couple of questions for the prosecuting attorney to sort out and tell us what the law actually is regarding personal property tax levies and other property tax levies. So here we are. Moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Mark, I really appreciate being able to look at this because it's an opportunity for us to decrease taxes, but not impact the taxes that are already being received in junior taxing districts, such as the hospitals and schools. And that's the thing that I'd really like to be guarded about. I totally favor the decreasing of taxes, but I don't want to do it at the expense of the other junior taxing districts.
Yeah, this question, I think, deals only with the county government's property tax levies. Had nothing to do with any of the other taxing districts. And Pam, I would more than be happy to have your and perhaps the Department of Revenue's views and opinions on this as well. This is a question basically for our prosecuting attorney as a matter of law. He's our statutory advisor, but I certainly would value your offices and your personal views. And anybody else that you want to consult as well, because we work together on this.
Information from the Department of Revenue, I've also shared with Mark.
Right.
And I've asked for the Department of Revenue's attorney to also give some opinion on that.
Excellent.
So when I get that, Mark will share it.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public Works.
Item 5A is a resolution calling for a hearing to be held November 10 to 10:30 a.m. regarding the 6-year transportation improvement program for 2016 through 2021.
Move to call for the public hearing.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Ross, I really profited from the more extended discussion of the tip and how that might be massaged and amended or changed or whatever word you want to use for our ultimate approval here with the budget. So
That works well for us to hope we do this every year.
yeah, let's make a habit of this. I know that thought was very useful. Okay, we vote on that? Yes.
Item 5B is a resolution initiating County Road Project C1235, Olympic Discovery Trail, Gossett Road to DPA power lines.
Move to approve the resolution.
Moved and seconded, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Budget, no community development. Pardon my voice this morning. No hearings, public comment on anything. Seeing no one, we have a Board of Health meeting this afternoon in Fort. Two of the commissioners there, I unfortunately have to be absent. My wife has got some eye surgery upcoming, and she's going to be unable to drive, so I've got to drive her down to Silverdale to get her eyeballs measured. So I mentioned that yesterday. And there being no other business to come before the board, we'll adjourn this